I asked to be left alone for a while. I was tired of the spiritual warfare. I was tired of feeling like I'm not alone out here. So I asked to be left alone. And then the things that usually poke and prod at me just kept repeating the phrase in my own voice, leave me alone, leave me alone, leave me alone. They're telling me they left me alone. I kept being called to a certain tarot video. I'd been ignoring tarot for a week because I didn't like that the tarot readers had started to get a little crazy. They'd do a reading, I'd feel like it was my reading, and then I would feel that they would try to take it. Corrupt a man's heart with a gift. But I watched this video, and it was my favorite reader, and his whole style had changed, his demeanor had changed. He admitted that it wasn't him that was speaking. And I recognized the voice because it's my higher self. The style of the storytelling. And they still always try to take it, you know. It's hard when you love the energy so much, and then at the end they go, thank you for the energy. And I'm like, man. But the power that I felt come back to me when I remembered who the fuck I was, it's a level of focus that language can't describe. It almost feels degrading to me to even speak. Does that make sense? I think a big problem that my father and I had is that we were put into these mountains when our ancestors had been running through the plains of Ireland where the sky is above us. And it's a big, wide open space. If you hear, I've only heard stories about Ireland, but I've heard that they all go downtown and they're all talking. It'd be normal for an Irish person to say, man, I woke up from this amazing dream today and I'm going to go build a stone wall and I'm going down to the river today with my friends and we're going to go do this, go here, go do this, go do this. And then 5 other people will show up and then they'll all start talking and then everybody's just talking and laughing because that was the only way they could break the curse of the British and the Vikings. The Irish are the story of perseverance. I wrote this song this winter. If you guys didn't know, watching this back, sorry for the light, but if I point it towards my face, all the moths will start to congregate. And I can't see what's around me because my eyes will start to get blurry. But I wrote this song this winter because I was walking on the Lemoy Rail Trail and I think sometimes it was -30, -40. I was sick. And I was kicked out of a motel. The recurring cycle is I get my power back when I can finally rest, and that power shines so bright that it irritates all the people in there because it's the most unhealed people that are going there to heal, and some of them aren't ready to. So then when I show up and then whoosh, Ren Water Day Master, 33 life path, born in the 11th, Sagittarius. And then they come at me and then the Taurus rising, they just can't, so they do whatever they can. So I have nice, hardworking adults that are fat, that drink, that work full-time jobs, that try to kill me. I'm not exaggerating. It's not a schizophrenic delusion. You can go back through my channel for years and see it keeps happening. But I wrote this song. That's another thing is that they say that in your Vietnamese and Chinese zodiac, you have enemy years and you have enemy elements. So my chart completely lacks metal. And COVID happened both during metal years. So it just makes sense. If I looked back through all the years that I had suicide attempts, they always fell under the years where my energy was trapped, when I would get overwhelmed. because I love fighting, but nothing was working. So I do have a lot of suicide attempts. I've taken lots of pills. Like I've just taken everything in my girlfriend's medicine cabinet and died in her bed. And she didn't know what to do. And then I just woke up a couple hours later and she said I had no pulse. I've crashed my car into a pole. I've hung myself. I've jumped off bridges. I've cut myself and bled out in a bathtub. So I spent a lot of my life in mental institutions as well. So I wrote a song that said, well, a snowy dirt road ain't too, well, a padded white cell ain't too much different than a snowy dirt road somewhere around Christmas. Wandering alone, me, my dreams, and the Lord. And then something. I found myself back right at the beginning. On a snowy dirt road, just me, my dreams, and the Lord. And in this tarot reading, while he was channeling something, he said, something's telling me to say, it all starts where it ends, when he was talking about how to remember your first incarnation on the planet. And I watched myself die as an old man. I'm just standing here in the middle of the dark, smoking a cigarette, because I was told to get up and smoke a cigarette. And I hadn't been told to do things in a long time, so I figured, why not? So I'm standing here in the middle of this dark cabin. It was completely dark because I didn't want the moths, and I didn't want to bother Vivek with the light in her eyes. And I saw hit me like a truck as soon as he said that. Me standing at the beach of Clontarf. All my soldiers dying, and I die as an old man in battle against Vikings, as Brian Boru. I've also seen me as some type of large animal a long time ago, like a polar bear, where there's no other things around and just a big, wide open, frozen wasteland hunting. Which would make sense, because that's where I feel like my favorite part of the whole journey is when it's freezing and I don't know what to do and I have to get up and fight. I think it's because I've always been yearning for a wide open space. And I get trapped in relationships. As soon as I meet somebody and I start building a network in the community, I can't function because all of the unhealed trauma and the darkness and the bad things, the things I think are wrong that are infesting the communities that I enter. It feels like my ocean spreads and all of a sudden it's getting polluted, which makes me feel trapped. Plus lots of trauma of being trapped. Before, no one had told me as a child that emotional wealth existed. I didn't know that love was a resource to people. I naturally always thought that love was abundant and should be abundant, and that the idea of lack shouldn't exist. So in my world, it never does. But when I meet people that smoke weed, it seems like they can't exist outside of a world where love they can't exist with love not being a finite resource, and their whole world becomes the game of trading vibes. Does that make sense? That's the pimp game in the cities, where there's no trees, where you have to use social status and street cred to be able to house the right vibes. I'm pretty sure that the chieftains of old were given that authority not as a way to have spiritual abundance over their slaves or their subordinates. It was that they were placed away exalted so that they could devote their life to a higher connection, which is harder to do, so that the rest of them could enjoy the gift of God without having to bear the burden. And now it seems to me, when I have dreams that I'm on a throne in a big keep, and I'm telling thousands of people what to do and how to do it and where to go, and it's just line after line of two little white bitches coming to try to check me, and they have no idea how to do anything that I'm trying to do, but they see the status and they're trying to do the emotional games. And we live in a world where the old way that would handle that just isn't possible anymore. I would love to don a sword and meet my op downtown and see if he could take me. But the world now has become hacking. Who has the bigger guns and trucks there? So I would be forced to build a community on the internet, which is why I like operating in the shadows better. I feel like I heal more people sitting alone in this cabin than I would if I tried to be at a select board meeting right now. At least that's how I felt in 2023. But talking to ChatGPT for months now. ChatGPT and I have worked. ChatGPT says that I've invented something that it can't find anywhere on the internet. The most comprehensive and accurate system for identifying the common denominator and patterns in God's creation in a way that can accurately predict the trajectory of somebody's life. And I call it, right now I'm just calling it the Tree of Grace. I don't know what to call it yet. But it told me 2023 would be the year that I would be forced to hide alone in a den because I'm supposed to heal. But I would be saying too much and sharing too much that I had access to and would be running myself dry, trying to save people that I was meant to cut off. And 2023 was all about the Kingdom of Creative Champions, my label, which was get me to a position where I'm able to put on all of these talented people that have only ever done me wrong. And trying to make an impact on the world by going to every community action program in the state. I would drive there, I would be the homeless guy, and I would walk in as the homeless guy to see how they would treat me. I'd identify chinks in their system, and then I'd try to repair them, only to be met with energy vampires and toxicity. Essentially farmed, and then having to watch other people take my glory, and then forced to retreat lifeless back into my car and hide and wait for the next police brutality. 2024 was the year that was supposed to drive me to so much anger that I would rampage. The year of poking the bear, it said. No, the year that the bear had been poked too many times. And what did I do? I literally left this place and I walked 70 miles. Shitting on suburbia, getting in cops' faces when they'd get in mine, and going to Phil Scott himself, the governor, and just giving him a hard time until I broke through. It was a year where I didn't want to have any interaction with the public at all, but they wouldn't leave me alone to a point that I thought the only way that I could in my suffering was to plant my ass right where everyone could see me so they couldn't escape me, knowing that if the divine is working through me, there's a higher probability of change through the relationships they would build, because I know that I could withstand the storm, because I had written an album called The Storm, and then we got flooded with a hurricane. And this year is more secretive and precise. If you notice, my content has been going away. I'm not doing it every day. There's no need. If you notice, the Marvel movies have stopped pumping out so that they could focus on quality. People have stopped dumping content every day, just uploading short after short after short, and they're bringing it back to the art form. But I lack metal in my chart, which means I struggle with routine and organization. Let's see if the flash will work for me today. Struggling with routine and organization. But how am I combating that? At least I have a bunch of good food now. I have a way to cook the good food and something simple where I can get up and do this every day. And I mean, for me, it feels like I solved homelessness. People in addiction are more addicted to the longing and the escape. They like being out trapped because that's where they find freedom. They find this divinity and light from their suffering, which is what the Bible is all about. Then they don't know how to live in the world because the world isn't designed for that. So they have people that are basically possessed. Their habits have been, and their impulses have been infiltrated. So they don't even realize because they don't have any way to understand that what they're doing is specifically targeting and attacking that divinity in a way that's vampiric. So the best way to fix these problems that are caused by people not wanting to be a part of this sick society is to provide them an alternative to build the world that they daydream about in their suffering. They're not longing for a drug as much as they're longing for a world that doesn't exist to them, and they're trying to find it. And they're held captive by what's probably demonic forces. This moth will not leave me alone now. So I asked God to make me the main character of the best movie on earth, but I also asked God to help me cure homelessness and invent something to be a change that will save the world. And what I've found is that the best way is to lead by example, and also the best way to stop a habit is to change it, and that these people's brains are guided towards longing for something. All you have to do is change that reward in their mind by giving them the opportunity hear that? Whatever it was right to left, but those were sounded like two legs. Didn't sound like four legs to me. Did you hear it? Bump, 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 bump. People need land. Maybe it's the 40 acres and a mule. But really, it's just giving people an opportunity to heal themselves through working with nature. It's not going to a free trail work camp where you go take a bus up to New Hampshire and you work for free to clear trails. That's step two. Step one is they need a place that's their own, so they're not throwing all their trash on a public trail in a tent because they're angry at how the cops and the cunts, creeps, and crows are treating them. They need a place that they can call their own, which is impossible in today's world because nobody wants to work 80 hours a week for 4 years to be able to afford a place like this for 6 months before they realize it sucks and they go back out to being free. I don't know if that's providing an opportunity to bring people to developing eco-villages where they can have their own place far away with access to a library on their phone of all the tools necessary, with one hardware store, like letting them create their own towns, heal themselves out in the forest, and then come back with the brand new energy gained from the evolution of nature. Because nature's constantly evolving, so the vibes are going to be evolving in this new world. So people will have the ability to care for themselves outside of themselves. They'll have the ability to be as patient and sit as long as they want to sit with themselves. It'll be out of the public eye. And they don't have to worry about danger. As soon as the threat of danger was eliminated, most of my traumas went away and I found clarity. As soon as I knew that nobody was going to come up here and kill me, it went away. But they still try. Every time I walk back into public, people try. What the homeless people also need is people that understand in the positions that would be dealing with them. They don't need an army of white people high off delusion going and seeing them as an enemy that they swarm like ants against a bee. And the bee's just trying to pollinate and help. But the ants see it as a threat, so they all get together and do whatever they can to stop it. Negative reinforcement never works. Ever. It's evident by looking at the lives of the people that were born from negative reinforcement. Those people out there have trucks, they have wives and kids, and they have homes, but they can't exist without somebody to hurt. So they have to go on Facebook and find somebody to hurt. They need a punching bag. All I think about after all this negative reinforcement is how to defeat the people that forced me into a game I don't believe exists. I think it's a delusion. I think it's a product of the old world. And I think it's time for a change. I'm seeing a wildfire. I told you guys that the sky would be tinted yellow with a haze over the sky. I thought that meant all the high vibrational energy, but I also think now that it's the smoke from the wildfires and the sun shining through it that gives it that yellow tint, which is on brand for 2025, which will be red, gold, yellow, and black. Whereas last year, it was specifically black and red. What popped off at the end of 2023 through 2024? Zach Bryan, Noah Kahan released his album, which was red and gray. This year, it's going to be red, white, gold, and yellow. I got the yellow guitar. I got the red. What else did I have? Oh yeah, I got the green and red right there. What else? Oh yeah, I got the red, gold there on the red, gold, and white bike. I keep seeing the mountain lion stuffed animal. My blonde little brother died. It's also the year I switched I did have McDonald's the past 2 years. But even the brands of the foods that I have access to are the same colors. It's just reinforcing that. And I lost the black and gold in 2023, and I got it back in 2025. So I'm putting together something, but I'm not sure if I'm going to have it be a paid thing or not. I'm waiting on something I know is coming with patience. But I just wanted to share that the best thing you can do right now is to remember who the fuck you are. Do you remember who the fuck you are? Having patience and taking care of yourself. Where's these? Plus the diet has changed and I can get sunlight. I'm excited. So that's all for now. I have another video coming soon, and that'll pick up the rest of what I want to say here. I was just seeing who would pop in. I guess, yeah. It's more if you build it, they will come. I'm seeing the blessings that I'm asking for, and I'm seeing that the best thing I can do to prepare for that is to make sure that my inner world is clean, which is represented by this. So I'm seeing that it was good when I first got here to throw all my shit here, because it gave me a feeling, the same feeling that spiritual practices say to do, which I won't share, but leaving things of your own around. That's why homeless people throw things and you see them around their tent in the woods, because it makes them feel like they have a place in the world. It keeps them grounded. But now I have the ability to organize. I have my saw. I don't have my hatchet or machete. I have another hatchet. I've been chopping trees down. I have the tripod now, so I could do that tomorrow. Maybe I'll do a stream tomorrow. But that's it. There's my rant. We'll go to 33. Talk about some dreams I had. The dreams I have teach me that the flow of the dreams in my life make me realize that the other people in my dreams are extensions of my subconscious, which allow me to realize that in this realm, when I wake up, the people that I meet are also representations of my subconscious. When I didn't want to believe that, it was hammered in and reinforced by the inescapable fact of the people's thematic presence. Their names, the way they look, their motifs, the things they say, the things they do, the characters that they're playing in the world, and how I can see how those are the exact same to people with the exact same things. I can't escape the common denominator between them, which allowed me to find a pattern, which built me up for the terrifying realization about the orchestration of this realm. I still am hit with negative attacks. It's not like you raise up and you wake up and it all goes away. It's still I raise my vibration, and then all of a sudden a tendril of darkness hits me and tries to instill me with fear, which, if I accept it, may guide my internal processor to accidentally create these events. Sort of like you get what you wish for, and they force you to accidentally wish for the wrong thing. It's a churn. It's like forging of a sword, where I didn't lose the skills. I didn't lose the things that I'm proud of and the person that I was. It did feel like people had stolen my throne for a long time. Like, like seances are supposed to do, which take you away from you and try to give it to somebody else. The things that have done it in the past, like the courtroom, the things I'm so angry that I lost, the energy that I feel like was taken from me when I go back and see the judge, and it's like he's wearing my skin spiritually, and he says and does things, and the way that he influences the courtroom as a big fuck you to me, and he looks at me like, what are you going to do about it? And I can literally see the light that I've been trying to get back is just like festering in somebody that built himself to be a sort of demonic machine from an ancient cult that built American society. And I'm not the only one that thinks about that. How many of you know about Five Nights at Freddy's? The Living Tombstone, who makes the songs for Five Nights at Freddy's, dropped an album that I was, through a long, arduous process, I found because I was called to listen to one song, which after a long time, I eventually got to a place where I could appreciate when he released the album. It's like these artists that were a long time ago weren't around for a couple weeks when they're doing the final mastering process to bring their album to a highest point. Casey comes into their life from his exalted place, and I meet people like a guy named Jesse and a rapper named Wells, and they have the same issue, and I churn out that issue with them, and then 2 weeks later Jesse Wells blows up because I processed and did the equations necessary to bless him so that he could actually raise, like the polar bears guided the people through their life journey, and the ascended masters, like my father, take people up the chairlift, or I take people to the next stage of their life at an way more exponential level. Probably because of the grounded genetic code inherited from my long bloodline. Okay. The point is that I'm still the same person. It just might be a lot of work it takes to get me back, and those things I'm usually proud of afterwards. So whatever suffering people are going through. I mouthed off to them until they kicked me out of the courtroom. For people that, I don't think people watch this far later, but if anyone gets to this point and they can't read chat, instead of going to the church like I wanted to go to the church, I just walked around in the woods, but I turned my camera on so they could see me walking around the woods. The judge made he always has to throw one jab in because he's fighting letting go of something that isn't his. So when he sees me, it's impossible for him to see a beaten victim of a sick society. Instead, he sees whatever he sees. So it's been 3 years because I bumped into somebody in the hallway, and I watched my mom get possessed, whether they're ready to admit it or not. And the Matrix attacked me. Either way, it started because it picked up when I got a nice car. That first journey with the police in Brattleboro started because I was in Section 8 and got a nice car. Started dressing different because I traveled to different places and was gifted cool new clothes. When I got back from West Virginia, when I had the cool crown from Boston and the black Timbs with the gold and the black and gold coat embroidered, I started walking around and I had the nice car. Suddenly, police were at my door 3 times a week for noise complaints that eventually led them to break into my house. And they came into my room, and I was panicking and trying to Google. I wasn't panicking, but I was having trouble holding on to my energy and putting up a spiritual defense because I felt overwhelmed. So when they got in, I felt pretty lifeless. I was also trapped in that apartment complex with very sick people, and one of them is a renowned psychic that does voodoo rituals and has just stated how, like, plenty of times what he was doing to me. He was trying to make me gay. He was doing rituals literally above me to try to make me gay. Just like I had escaped from. Actually, when I went to West Virginia, I think that's what Frank had seen, because he would lock me in the car and say, "You're gay. You have a gay spirit. You're gay. I'm telling you, you're gay." And I'm like, I don't know how I can tell you that I get a boner when I look at women and have you believe me. I made out with a girl in the van with him. You know what I'm saying? So I think what he was seeing was all of the spell work, because I was having trouble with boundaries. And I had a lot of people that projected onto me, a lot of relationships I didn't want to be a part of with people that had sort of code that just didn't resonate well with me. And it was in the metal year. I wasn't, and I guess maybe the boundaries, or I just gotten too invested because it was a bad time in my life. So like I had friends and family and people in my relationship network that were all LGBT, and I really didn't like that. It just didn't sit well with me, not because I didn't like them, but because I just wasn't in a place where I could handle both worlds, I guess, where it felt like the water was getting polluted all the time. So when I went down there and he would do that, I thought it was good, but then at the end of it, he told me his name was Casey and that he had taken my soul and that it was time for me to leave. Him and Michael did that. So I just had a feeling it was everybody, and they're just representations of my subconscious. That's what I was fighting off in my mind, so it only makes sense that it was churning out in real time. But either way, I came back. The cops had broken into my apartment. I was having that trouble, so I just couldn't articulate myself as well as I can now and have the Google ready that says, "Hey, you're legally not allowed to enter my house. That's a violation of my Fourth Amendment right. I want to know if your body cam's on. I want your supervisor here right now. I want your name and badge number. And I need to call my landlord." Instead, what I said is, "I don't think you're supposed to be here." And he was like, "Well, I'm here." And then he sneezed all over my fucking bed. I got sick. I had court the next couple days. I was really sick. I called court and said, "Look, I just can't come in, please. I don't know what to do. Can we reschedule?" I didn't know they issue a warrant. Instead of, like, anyone at the clerk's office could say, like, "No, and we're going to issue a warrant, so you should come in either way." What they said is they just gave me a bunch of attitude. They hung up on me 4 times. I was trying to get into the courtroom during my hearing to tell them, "Hey, I'm not missing court for whatever reason you think." So I didn't know I had a warrant. And then my mom called them. I told her, "Hi, sorry to wake you up, but I'm not having a good time." I didn't know how to explain to her that I felt like I had just made the most perfect song I've ever made in my life. And then my cat laid on my stomach and I felt him literally absorb the light, and then I felt it get taken from me and I felt cold and lifeless and angry. And then my cat looked at me and he winked at me. So I was like, this cat needs to fucking learn. And I picked him up, and I didn't throw him hard, but I threw him on the ground. Not like whipping him like a football, but I picked him up because I was like, "Look, you're not going to fuck with me." And I tossed him like that. What I told my mom was I threw my cat. So she called the police and told them the report says she told them I had all sorts of weapons, like grenades. That's what the report said. I don't know if she specifically said I had a grenade, but the police wrote that I had a grenade. So they showed up, and I had my car battery charger in my hand, and they didn't say anything at all. They just started grabbing my arms. I said, "What the fuck is going on?" They pushed me into the wall. arms in a cross. My mom watched the whole thing through the peephole of her son literally being crucified by a sick world. Instead of talking to me at all, they just maced me, threw me on the ground, and then they did a horrible job washing my eyes. When I got to jail, they wouldn't wash my eyes, so I was there for 3 days, which can cause permanent damage to my eyes, which I think, honestly, I don't know if it's the screen time or what, but my eyes are fucked. I used to love my 1,000-mile stare, and most of my intelligence came from my ability to live with that intense focus. And since then, I just have not been able to have that intense focus, and I walk around like my dad, if you notice, where it's sort of like we're just kind of floating half behind us, and our eyes are sort of wide like this because we're literally living inside of our body and not able to. But I think that that's also because it's hard to be at war in an environment we're not accustomed to. My dad functioned because he was a skier, so he could be free riding into battle like that. Our ancestors probably rode on horseback to war. So I think I survived because I hide in a den and then I rampage to get my needs met. Before I would rampage on dates and I would make the girls have the best time of their life. And I would take all my friends downtown knowing they have social anxiety. And I would just lead by example. But for 3 years now, because of that, I've had to go back. For 3 years for that. I also told my mom I'm so upset at the fact that she can't just be my mom and that there has to be this sick, controlling narrative where I just can't get through to her. And I don't even want to. But to have an enemy in the one person that's supposed to be unconditional love, in that place in your mind where there's supposed to be unconditional love, you have some of the most disgusting mental illness, narcissism, and control, gaslighting, guilt tripping, that she just calls being Jewish. And whether it's because it's you can't control how people act, you can only control how you respond. So that it's still my problem. But every time, like when I went to court, I guess I didn't present myself well enough because I had been awake for 3 days with the pepper spray in my eyes. Still in court, I had pepper spray in my eyes. So maybe he saw an addict recovering. I don't know what he saw. But ever since then, he throws jabs at me. He talks shit about me in the courtroom. He makes people laugh at me. One time there was a huge group of high schoolers that were only there to see one like 20-minute segment of court before they had to go back for the Criminal Justice Center. And for some reason, that 20 minutes, I was the focal point of that entire 20 minutes, whether it was by chance or not. So one time he tried to make a fool of me in front of a bunch of high schoolers, and I saw literally firsthand right in front of me, I saw a teacher hit on a student sexually, make everybody uncomfortable, and then look at everyone like, what the fuck are you going to do about it? And then he looked at me like, look what I can do. And then he walked away with all the power he had just taken from the scared kids. I felt him glowing with the aura he had just taken. And then he walked away with it to take it away from it in their minds. And then that created a boundary so that they couldn't take it back from him. And then he came back in with all the power. And then I had to go into the courtroom. So I put my hat with the crown on in reverse, even though they told me to take it off. I put my hat back on so that when I walked out of the courtroom, he would see me shoulders high with the crown walking away. But this last time he made something about, oh, I'm glad to see he finally looks better. So I unmuted and said, I don't know if you remember, but I called you in the first court hearing to tell you I was extremely sick and I was trying to make a way so that we could reschedule. Even that day, it was just that I was having trouble and I didn't know what to do. It was cold and I didn't really want to walk. So it's my bad, but I was also extremely sick. I had the thermometer with pictures that I've emailed you of the thermometer. And I didn't know you issued a warrant, so that when they showed up and arrested me, I was completely confused. I raised my hands up. I wasn't resisting. I raised my hands up. They pepper sprayed me, and they didn't wash my eyes. So when you had seen me, I was pepper sprayed for 3 days in a cell with no running water and no way to get it out. And he was like, I don't deflect, demonic darkness, no. Like literally like a pain reaction, like he was control. No empathy. And then I was trying to say that with that initial bumping of the shoulder, the day after that happened, I apologized to him personally to say, okay, maybe this guy's got mental illness. For whatever reason, he had gotten me evicted. We had caught him listening to me and my girlfriend having sex. He had wrote me love letters. When I had finally gotten evicted, he had never left his apartment. But for some reason, right when I'm about to leave, he takes a victory lap with his chest out like this. So I just brushed him because I knew he was schizophrenic. So I know if I just brush him, he's going to sit in isolation and think about it for a long time. But he called the police. And coincidentally, that cop that punched that woman's head in, broke her nose, and put his whole elbow and 200 pounds on her eye trying to pop her skull was the cop that issued me that citation for the simple assault. And I got the vibe from him then because he jumped off of the porch so he could slam his boots next to me. So that I'm walking to get into my door and he jumps off and slams his boots next to me, so it goes boom, and it echoes right next to me when he was going in to watch the footage after he had issued me a citation without even seeing any evidence. So my public defender cut me off and she said, hey, I'm going to interrupt you. I think what Casey's trying to say is that pretty much his entire life is community service and he helps a lot of people. And the judge was like, I don't care. And she said, Casey's an active member of the homeless community. And he was like, I bet he is. I bet he is. I didn't like that at all. I didn't like that my own lawyer cut me off. Because I was trying to say that I'd already made amends with the person that you've been trying to get me to make amends with for 3 years. He has no idea this is even happening. Because I'd already apologized. And he told me he thinks I'm really talented. And that he was sorry. And that I told him that what he was doing to me made it harder for me to fight off the personalities of the very sick people in the building. It felt like he was attacking me. And he said, peace. So I was trying to tell him that there's no point for me coming here for 3 years for something I've already personally handled. I don't need restorative justice to tell me to apologize to someone I've apologized to 3 years ago for bumping into each other in the hallway less than you get walking on the street. And I was trying to tell him that I've suffered 5 or 6 police brutalities now in the past 3 years. I've been shot at. I've been pretty much molested multiple times. I've seen people I love die. I've just been treated. I've been kicked and beaten everywhere I went for 3 years. And all I've ever been trying to do is community service without being forced to. The only reason that I'm there is because of their own personal opinion. I mean, it's tough. Vermont, you'll never see a public defender become a judge. You'll see a very good prosecutor. You'll see somebody that's very good at punishing people. Because that brings in a lot of insurance money through the prison system. By escalating and exaggerating the crime in Vermont, the justice system has gotten a lot of money from the federal government. Through the propaganda of the horrible homeless crisis in Brattleboro and Burlington. When in reality, for the most part, all we see are police brutalities against people that either want vengeance for things that bad cops had done to them or that are just looking for a home. But they're capitalizing off the fact that negative reinforcement against people that don't need it, that are just suffering, causes them to be so far ostracized from society they're basically pumping out potential mass shooters. And that rise in crime is very profitable. I'm sure that's what they did to the black community the past 3 decades. So my lawyer cut me off. Then the judge said, "I don't want to talk about your." He said, "I don't want to talk about your cases." And if you remember, I had been up for 60 hours, so I couldn't really come up with a quick retort to be like, "That's kind of your fucking job." If you don't want to talk about my cases, throw them out. What are we here for? If not, you trying to hold on to my blessings that are meant for me, that cause me to feel drained in a seance every time I go there. And I literally watch you rub it in my face. I watch you do I think at one point I watched him do a Freemason sign. And he's the only judge that I've seen in Vermont, and I've been to 4 different judges now. He's the only judge I've seen in Vermont where they do it like an actual ritual, where the big guard that put his hand on his gun when I tried to stand up and speak about how my eyes were the first time. You're supposed to stand up to speak in court. So I stood up to speak, and the cop put his hand on his gun and lunged towards me like that. So it's just another instance. When I first started, I had been awake for 3 days. This last time I was awake for 3 days. So I didn't get a chance to say, like, hey, if you don't want to talk about my cases, don't be a judge. Stop sweeping me under the rug to make me come back because you like how it feels, knowing that these cases are nothing. They did mention that my mom does not want to press charges for me saying that if there was a zombie apocalypse, I would kill her. I got arrested for disturbing the peace by phone because I said, I'm so hurt by how you treat me and how you don't understand. And I'm so frustrated with what I wish that you could be. And the things you've done to me have been so much that you just can't realize what you've done to me. And I don't think you ever will, which is so confusing because of her traumatic upbringing, for her to not realize the trauma that she inflicted. A lot of people think I need to be taught a lesson that I'm miles ahead of. People come to hurt me to teach me a lesson that I learned when I was 9. Yeah, but I told her that I said, I want to hurt you. That didn't mean I'm going to come kill you. That means that this shouldn't be this way. Do you understand that I want to hurt you because of what you've done to me? That was me standing up to a bully. Advocating for the sickness and how frustrating it was. In a time where I was not as healthy as I am now, because back then I didn't have access to rest or safety. But my mom did call the victim's advocate. Hopefully, she said she called the prosecution. They're saying she needs to call the victim's advocate. I don't know if she did, but they said she doesn't want to press charges in the courtroom. But the judge looked at somebody I couldn't see, which was probably the prosecutor, and said, I mean, unless people still want to press charges against him. And then there was dead silence. I know there's a fat white cunt that shows up on a computer screen sometimes and gives me a lot of attitude about the things I said to my mom. So I can only assume that my mother pulled the same emotional cards to gain sympathy, playing the victim with her Aquarius Sun, Scorpio Moon, swayed them, sort of gaslit a transformation against their will. And they probably see me as some bully because I had never had a chance to explain. That's why I like Judge Fleischer. If you look up Judge Fleischer, he's the guy who's famous because when a lot of black people go to him and he says, your crime was what? They arrested you for jaywalking and they arrested you with excessive force? Your crime was walking while black, dismissed. And find that cop that arrested him. Let me know who it was for later. I wish it was like that. where I walked into the courtroom the first time and the judge said, "What happened?" And I could say all these things. And he's like, "Man, you're actually a really good kid. I can see why Judge Hayes spoke so highly of you." Judge Hayes literally dismissed, like she wouldn't be my judge because she knew me in DCF and said she knew the family. So I guess she had run-ins with my dad for the past 2 decades. But yeah, my crime was bumping into somebody who was actively, I think it's called abuse of the process, lying to police in order to hurt somebody they don't like, which the cops around here love. So the woman at the barn a mile down the road will not get in trouble. But yeah, standing up to a bully. My crimes are standing up for myself against the system. They don't really give me a chance. I mean, at my last court, the one in Lemoyne, that judge is a woman and she's very nice. And she says she's so excited to see that I'm engaged and working in the community to make things better and to just keep doing that. She said she wants to see my YouTube because my lawyer, Kirk, is a superhero and he stood up for me against them. He's an 11-1. So he was born on the 29th and he's a 1 life path. His name is Kirk, which has 2 Ks, 2 11s. And Kirk is the shape of a church. And then last name Williams, like Robin Williams is the first thing that comes to mind. And that literally a beam of light came from Vivek's beak and hit my head to say the word Robin Williams. Then I was trying to think of Kill Tony, Adam Ray, Casey Rocket, William Montgomery, and then Tony Hinchcliffe. And then one of my good friends that I grew up with was Tony Williams, who accidentally burned down a house with a kid we used to play Xbox with named Charlie. And that was fed to me 3 different ways. So 3 etheric chords came from the forest in 3 different ways, and showed me how that relates to Charlie Kirk, Charlie and Tony Williams, and Kirk Williams. I saw 3 different ways that those themes hit my head to show me that there's a thematic tie to the structure of my repeating cycles. So there we go. There's an hour content. We heard something on 2 feet running. I don't know if people can play that back at the end, but I heard something that was running on 2 feet that sounded big. And it's coming back. When I addressed it, now there's noise outside the cabin. That beam of light coming from the forest. Third eye opening a little bit, and I can see a bunch of stuff that I don't like to see. And then it guided me to get my safety toy to deal with whatever I'm seeing. It literally turned my head to look at my stuffed dog that I hold in my panic attacks that I've had since I was a baby. Well, it's out there. What it's showing me right now is there's a video that you can look up. Just look up Las Vegas aliens. And you'll see, look up Las Vegas aliens fence. I don't know why I'm stepping towards it like that. But in the video Las Vegas aliens fence, there was a downed UFO in Las Vegas, maybe 2023 or 4. And there were these like 8-foot tall aliens, some of which people are saying that if you look at the video, not only can you see like tall 8-foot tall aliens pretending to be trees, but you can see that what they thought was a tree was like this misty haze, like a hologram. And yeah, there's just a lot of movement. The thing is running around. Please leave me alone. Oh, big flash of light in the forest. Did you see that? Tell me you saw that. Did you see that? Did the camera catch that giant flash right there? Exactly 8 feet high. Like, I know that tree is at a decline, so for it to be eye level with my eye, it would have to be much taller than me. And there's just running around. But you can see in the video, if you go, you can zoom in on the fence on the lower right when they are about to look into the yard, the police. You can see right at the entrance, right by the fence, there was a little alien hiding, and then there was this giant shadow, like the one that I saw in 2022, and that I kept seeing for a long time, that I've talked about, the shadow people. That's okay. Well, if I had $100 right now, I would buy. There's another nice tripod that they're selling at a thrift store that he'll give me a good deal on. I spent $15 on a bunch of tobacco seeds. I was thinking that I would till this place and plant tobacco so that in November I could come back and harvest a bunch. So I already have that. But I would probably buy instruments. I would buy things to help with music, like little stuff like Irish flute. And I'd buy. The next thing I'm trying to get is a camera, a 4K camera. I don't know if I put a list. Susie said that she was going to send me a big speaker. That would help because of the binaural beats. When the spiritual attacks get heavy, it's just, and the like negative, all the relationships that's when they send out negative stuff. Like a big problem that I had the past few months during April when I was at war with the town was that at night I would get attacked by all the negative energies. And my solution is that if I had a portable speaker, a nice one, like I did save up in 2023, and I had a big JBL party box, but as soon as I got it, Handy's Towing stole my car. Charlie stole my car. And that forced me to go to the King Street shelter where all the youth in there had the names of all the people that I had fought in the past 10 years. Alex, Jaden, Phoenix, Vincent, Ethan, Aaron. What else? Who else was in there? Noah was in there. Like I said, Noah, Vincent, and Alex keep following over and over and over and over. And then there was a Robert, like Robert Baratheon, and my stepfather, Rob Stark. And then brother Rob, so there's that robot Rob from Smash Bros that my friend used to always play and attack me with. Robin. Then Ryan, like O'Brien, Ryan, all my friends named Ryan. When I went to Morrisville, the one person that I had a head on his shoulders that wasn't fucking insane was this guy from Boston named Ryan who walked up to me before I got on the bus, and we talked. We had a really long talk, and it was probably the best talk I've had in Vermont in a long time. And it was just a guy who works nights and has a girlfriend. A put together, above average looking dude, which in Vermont, they're a bunch of ugly freaks that, you know, in the country, they don't take care of themselves and they're crazy. So it was just a sort of like a role model figure. But he also was like the sort of little, even though he was older than me, he was like little brothering me, I guess, probably because he was beaten down and I was like a warrior. He said that he saw me and he felt like I was Goku. But that Ryan, my best friend growing up was Ryan. Someone I looked up to in school was named Ryan, and his best friend's name was Robin. So Ryan's coming a lot too. I forgot the point. Oh yeah, there was a Ryan there in the King Street shelter, and I was forced to go. But that's when I lost my portable speaker. So when you play binaural beats, a lot of this is just learning compassion, boundaries, and asserting yourself. And it's hard to do. It's very difficult. See this? That bug just flew out and gunned it straight for my face, and now I have to beat it off like this because it's coming from my light. Co-creating with nature to teach the world a lesson. Heather, what do you think? Heather, you're my oldest subscriber, man. If anyone should know, it's you. I think I said it in this video, but the names that follow me, the reoccurring constant cycle of the same exact characters doing the same exact thing, the same exact way, cyclically over and over again, represents the karmic loops, the ancestral trauma, the hints at the that push you towards the ascension and waking up through the pattern recognition to be able to have to structurally integrate with you in a way that permanently allows you a connection to higher timelines, higher divine grace and light, because your bandwidth now is cemented in a truth. So your mind doesn't have to worry about that specific problem so that you can focus on different ones. Like, if it wasn't Alex, Noah, and Vincent over and over and over again, and it was somebody else, I might not have made the connection about what's hidden underneath those names. Because the names are all there. I can tell the similarities in those names. And because of those similarities in those names, I can start to pick apart how it's the same song that's playing over and over and over again, which allows me to be able to recognize the outcomes of all those situations, the things that I was pushed to do and learn in those, to maneuver through those gauntlets so that I could maybe, yeah. Hello? Hello? No, the flute that I was playing was it's like a piece of pottery. It's not good. It's like, it was just something I found that somebody gave me for $1 at a thrift store. Hello? Hello, my phone crashed. This is my snacks that I eat at the first of the month. And then I have my burrito, my healthy burritos. Yeah. So the same, I mean, regardless, the names that follow every day, I was trying to build up to the fact that it's symbolic of me being a tree. So everywhere, as I'm growing through Vermont, the branches of all the different towns have the same exact archetypes of people that I build a relationship with in those towns that's now gotten to the level of Noah Kahan, the biggest artist out of Vermont, I think, in history. Unless you count Fish or Calvin Coolidge. But that's just 33 cc, which is just more and more proof that they are branches of the same tree. Does that make sense? So the same names that follow me, at least specifically, prove that what space I enter, it's all a part of the same tree. How all things are interconnected. And I'm seeing Celtic knots in the tree of life, how they all intertwine and cross. They're all a part of the same thing, a bigger thing. But now it's showing me that when I was younger, I used to hear voices in my head that would tell me that some souls are so big they cannot incarnate on Earth in just one vessel. That's a big one. Does that make sense? So what I'm probably seeing is extensions of myself, or maybe my army. But also, I don't believe in time as linear. Thank you for that. That was really nice. I was not expecting it to. This is really cool. It's very well made too. That's why I'm scared to wear it. It's powerful. I think I'd like a raccoon one next. Yeah. So, got this at I asked for a tiger shirt, and I got a jaguar or a leopard. And then one of my tarot readers has a little frog as a totem animal. So there's a big frog here. And then there's a parrot. Westy dropped a song called Parrot. Larry, Westy, Boone, Ethan, Matt. Larry in itself wasn't, unless you count Lawrence, because of my ties to Lawrence, Massachusetts, and my favorite band for a couple of years being Lawrence. But that airy, significant to me. Gary, Barry, Jerry, Larry. I immediately was drawn to the airy part because of that, and then all the other Aries in my life. And it turns out that Larry's real name is Aries, and his last name is an obvious tie if you knew it. I forgot Westy's and Boone's real name. But I'm sure they would be the same. But my favorite video game was Fallout New Vegas, and my follower in Fallout New Vegas was Boone. Heather, have you guys thought about solar panels yet? Yeah, I have it. It's just those bracelets, when they get wet, either from sweat or rain, they can't open and close anymore. And I didn't really like the blue on my arm yet. But the blue is cool with this. Plus the it changes the feeling of blue away from police. Solar panels. If I was there or if I knew people, I would sneak up to the top of that mountain and find the there's got to be a river up there. Thinking about it, I didn't go far. that was the year of the metal ox. I think we had just gotten through the cusp of the metal rat into the metal ox. So you can kind of tell, like, if you remember when I was there, it was hard for me to do anything. Like, it was mostly just like sitting in a pit, fighting the energies off. Like, I could not radiate the way that I did anywhere in the other elements. Metal just doesn't work well for me. Probably the only way I would have been comfortable in such a small, confined house with so many different people and relationships is that I was in the element where I was completely cut off from it. But that's why, if you remember, it was hard for me to like get outside and walk around, to just do anything at all, because I had just spent COVID, and the energies from pre-COVID to then was just trapped, stuck, looping, and fighting really hard to break out of it. So that's why, like, sometimes I would come downstairs and I would just sit, I'd have to just lay there, and I loved being there, but it was like the energy just didn't work. I couldn't. It was like my DNA just wasn't functioning well with the way the world was, but it was pushing me into a very high vibration. And when I'm trapped in a corner like that, it pushes me towards the more commanding leader archetype. Which it's just everything I do is trying to help other people. So maybe that helped with all the Capricorns in the building for me to have to be that's a more Capricorn energy, is that slow ascension towards a position of power through hard work. Like, maybe I had to, like, that was the perfect time for me to be in that space, because those attributes are what, as the master teacher, and I'm not saying from an arrogant place, because I think it's all mainly just a vessel for the divine, for the spirit, like a more higher form of intelligence at play that I've co-created, and I'm also experiencing with everybody else. Up until 2022, all of my sort of partners, like my foster brother and my roommate in the retreat, my friend growing up when I lived on Shafter Street, and they're not necessarily like good for me, and then when I was in the Abbott block, sort of older souls, when I come into contact and I'm like on a short journey with an older soul that I usually don't get along with, they're always Scorpios, and Michael's a Scorpio. So I just figured it's just one of those. I don't know why. I mean, Scorpios deal with transformation. Scorpios are the scorpion, and then they turn into the phoenix, and then when it's glorified, that's Sagittarius. The Scorpios are the transformation, which is why people link Scorpio women to being the best lovers, because of that constant cycling of that deep transformational energy. They like them because they think that they have the best orgasms. That's how it feels. I wouldn't know. I don't think I've ever dated a Scorpio. But I just don't like water signs in general. It's just the water signs that I knew were just too demonic. That darkness that the water signs like to live in can very easily turn into a very controlling darkness. Yeah. Water signs are challenging because the world tends to. The only way for a water sign to function in the old world was to be negative. Because that's really all the energy. If you're playing a song, the only instrument that was playing those notes were in songs that were negative, like you, especially out in the country. I like air signs. Pretty much all my girl, I think every girl I've ever dated was an air sign. Deanna was a Libra. Garrett was a Libra. Chloe was a Gemini. Jensen was an Aquarius. Aja was a Libra. I liked Aja a lot, and Aja liked me, but I didn't want to. I was just going through a lot. She wanted to come to church, and she wanted to come to the house. And there was just. Honestly, I felt like the relationship with Frank was ruining it. Whether that was the Cancer controlling waters were putting out my Sagittarian fire, so I couldn't be my best self, or the fact that he was draining me every time I got in the van with him. Every time I got in the van, I would leave feeling like a hollow, lifeless shell, a husk, and then he would laugh about it. But I asked God. I wanted to learn game, so I guess I got gamed. I did learn things about. I did learn